Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be fitting our new Eibach Pro lowering springs to the BMW M140i. We've gone for the 20mm drop all around with 15mm spacers on the rear and 12mm spacers on the front. Spacers by Bimmec and lowering springs by Eibach, like we said. Reason I've gone for a 20mm drop is purely just the area that I live in is full of potholes, speed bumps, industrial estates, and I feel like anything more than 20mm we might be getting into a little bit of trouble with the splitter kit that we've got fitted. So I'll cut to a few clips of the car as it stands, and we'll run you through the process of fitting the springs, and we'll hopefully get to see some results at the end of it should the weather hold out, because it's absolutely miserable for June at the moment. So we'll see you soon. So just showing the OEM poke on the rear wheels, which we'll compare once we've got the Bimmec spacers on. So measuring up the standard spring height from the centre of the cap to the arch, we're looking at about 36 centimetres on the rear and roughly 36.5 centimetres or 36 centimetres again on the front. So we expect that to drop to about 34. Massive shout out to Pep. I'll tag his Instagram in the description below, but he's lent us his expertise and his trolley jacks for the day just to help get these fitted. I have to say it's been miserable weather, so once again, thanks very much to Pep. So we start by just jacking up the fronts. We'll tackle the front springs first because they seem to be the trickiest from what we've heard. Once jacked up, we're going to go ahead and remove the bolts to take the wheel off. So once the wheel's off, we're going to start by taking out this spring. This can be a two-man job at times if you haven't got a ramp. So a little bit of play here. Just got to work it out nice and slowly, making sure you pay sort of special attention, make sure your ABS connection and everything's disconnected before you go ahead and remove that spring. Once the springs are off, it's time to compress your old springs just to take them off safely. Again, if you're getting this done at a garage or if you've got access to a proper spring compressor machine, then this would be optimal, but we're just using some hand compressors today to do so. We get our new springs hooked up, compress once more before we go ahead to swap them over. Now at this point, it is just worth mentioning, it is absolutely vital that you make sure all those seals are sat nice and neatly as they come off the standard springs. We're using a trolley jack here just to support the bottom of the spring itself whilst we go ahead, tighten everything back up and get all our bolts back in place. Tightening by hand to start, just so we're not over tightening them and making our life any harder. Now, once everything's nipped together by hand, go ahead and tighten those up properly with a ratchet spanner. Moving on, just before we replace our alloys, we're going to go ahead and fit the spacers, making sure you clean up the hub and the inside of the spacer just before, just to make sure you've got a clean, smooth contact. It should go on nice and smoothly, nice and flush and spin freely. So we're going to need the longer bolts that come with the spacer kit. Make sure that you don't get these mixed up with your shorter bolts because you won't get them through once you come to put the alloy on. So replacing your alloy back onto the hub and connecting up with the new longer bolts. So once we've tightened up those bolts by hand, we're going to go ahead and just drop the vehicle down nice and slowly, back so the tyres got contact to the floor, just before we tackle it with the torque wrench. So around 130, 140 Newton meters on a torque wrench. It is essential, guys, just to make sure that you are torquing your nuts and not just sort of over tightening them by hand or with an air gun, just in case you ever get a blowout by the side of the road. You don't fancy being there stuck, unable with the correct tools to take your wheels off. We'll speed through this process, as you've just seen, essentially on the fronts, how we change the springs, but the rears are a little easier. So we just go ahead, one central drat to the rear, get the back end of that car up, give us enough clearance and access to get the wheels off safely. And just putting a support on the front wheel just to make sure we're not rolling down. Once we're finished fitting both rear springs, we're going to go ahead and drop that trolley jack down, get the car sat back on the floor, move everything out from under the car that you might have been working on before you drop it back. You will notice that it doesn't look like it's actually dropped at all because we've had the handbrake on, but once you put it in reverse and you drive off, you will feel them sort of just drop in nicely and start to settle. So after a 60-mile drive home, the springs are really settled in now. Now, these springs weren't from new, so they'd already been on a car, so they didn't really need much breaking in. But if you've gone for new springs, you might find that you need a couple 100 miles or a couple of days driving at least just to get them to fully settle and drop the full 20 mil. But we'll cut across now to a few shots of the car as it sits after that drive, and you'll notice that the drops looking really nice. The aesthetics look a lot better. We've got a full 20 mil on the front and rear, and we'll cut across just to show you on the tape measure we were at 36 centimetres before. You'll notice that we go down to 34 now. So whilst we had the car up on the ramps, I did take the rear exhaust tips off, just bring them out a couple of mils so they poked a little better. Just found it looks a little bit more aggressive. Whilst we're there anyway, it was a great time just to take them off and give them a good clean up. So the Bimmec spacers there, 15 mils on the rear. Could definitely see that they're sitting out of the arches a lot better. And just as suspected, we're at 34 centimetres on the rear. Hi guys, so as you've seen, we've had the Eibach 20mm lowering springs fitted to the M140 now. Also gone for the Bimmec spacers with 15 mils on the rear and 12 mils on the front. Hopefully that's a quick overview on the fitting process. There will be a link in the description to all the products that were fitted onto the car today. So time for me just to give you a quick overview on the difference in between sort of the stock standard ride height and the lowering springs. Almost instantly, when taking the car for a quick test spin, I could tell the car felt much more planted, obviously, especially in the corners, especially at speeds. It was a slippy surface. We've had some terrible weather the last few days, and already I felt like I was gripping to the road a lot better, which is really good stuff. The main reason I went for this mod wasn't really the looks, to be honest. I know a lot of people lower the cars just because they prefer the way it looks. I did it purely for performance or handling enhancements, and I'm certainly over the moon with the results, so I couldn't recommend it enough. A lot of people have gone for the H&Rs over the Eibachs. I can't comment too much because I haven't really driven them, but I would say certainly as a placebo effect, at least the car feels a little bit more quicker, just because that power's a lot more accessible. It's given me a lot more confidence in the rain, around corners, on roundabouts. So overall, absolutely over the moon with the mod. If you've got any questions regarding where I got the springs from, or if perhaps you're looking to fit them yourself and you've got any apprehensions, then please just drop it in the comments below, and we'll be sure to get back to you. We will be doing a couple of more mods on this car in the next couple of weeks, so please hit subscribe in the top corner. Make sure you keep an eye out for those, and we'll speak to you and hear from you again soon.